Welcome to the chapter on sawdust and wood chip substrate preparation. In my opinion, this is probably the most important chapter in this entire video because with the exception of Psilocybe cubensis and the very common button mushrooms that you can buy cheaply in every grocery store, virtually every gourmet, edible, and medicinal mushroom grows on sawdust and wood chips. The procedure I'm going to show you today is enough to fill 2 of the large gusseted spawn bags. And we will start out with 16 cups of sawdust and roughly half that amount of wood chips. We'll be adding wheat bran and gypsum to the mix, mixing up our dry ingredients, and then adding moisture and sterilizing them. Let's get started. It's equally important to stir up all of your dry ingredients before you add any water at all. Gypsum is what they use to make plaster of Paris, which if you broke your arm when you were a kid, it's probably what they made the cast out of. It's also what they use to make drywall. We call it sheetrock in the U.S. after the main brand, but if you get it wet before it's fully mixed in, it's going to harden up. So be sure and mix your dry ingredients very well, and then go ahead and add your 6 cups of water. The wheat bran and gypsum definitely will increase your yields, so don't try to cut corners and skip out on them because you'll definitely be sorry later. Now I also have soaked these wood chips in water. You can either soak them in water overnight or you can drop them into a pan and boil them for about an hour. But either way, you want to hydrate the wood chips before you get started. I should also add, when I say to use 6 cups of water, that's a starting point for you. You'll know when you have your moisture right because you'll pick up a handful and squeeze as hard as you can, and no more than 1 or 2 drops are going to come out. If you make it too wet, the mycelium is going to have a really hard time colonizing it. I like to make it a bit on the dry side, and then when we get ready for fruiting, we'll take the substrate out of the bag and soak it in water overnight, and we'll put the moisture we need for our flush in at that time. Right now we're only trying to get enough moisture in it for colonization. I really like using one of these large coffee cans with the bottom cut out to hold the bag open while I fill it. And there's no need to try to mix your substrate up at this time. Just a couple handfuls of sawdust and a handful of wood chips, and that'll be fine. And after we sterilize them and they cool, whenever we inoculate, we're going to be shaking it and mixing them well at that time, so there's no reason to do it twice. Notice how I slipped a piece of Tyvek. This is a Tyvek wrist sleeve, but notice how I slip it in between the creases and then fold the bag accordion style. And folding the bag this way is real important because it will allow the bag to expand and let steam out, and then as the bag cools, it will compress tight. with the plastic parts of the bag making a temporary seal against themselves. The only path for air to enter would be through the Tyvek wrist sleeve, and that filters any contaminants that might be present in the air. This is what enables us to allow our pressure cooker to cool without having a sterile laboratory. I take the pressure cooker into my bedroom with wall-to-wall carpet and I let it cool, and I don't get contaminated bags. If we tried to do this without having the Tyvek in the bag, they would definitely contaminate. I want you to notice there's only about 1.5 inches of water in the bottom of the pressure cooker, perhaps 2 centimeters. And the reason for that, these bags are going to occupy most of the bottom of the pressure cooker, and we don't want it to push the water up and have a chance of any water getting inside our bags. So you want to use the least amount of water that you can get away with and not have it boil dry. And also notice as I load it that I use spacers in between the bags to allow the steam to penetrate fully. Just use whatever you have. I have a lot of jar lids laying around, so I use them, but you can crumple up aluminum foil or whatever you have, but make sure the steam can penetrate all the way around all of the bags. After you get your pressure cooker loaded, you want to be sure and put something heavy on top of the bags. The reason for this is you certainly don't want the bags to come unfolded during the cycle. It would be disastrous if the bags were to unfold and block both the pressure regulating nozzle and the pressure relief nozzle. Now you want to sterilize these at 15 psi or 100 kPa for 2 hours. And as with anything, when the time is up, simply shut off the stove and walk away. Don't try to pop the weight or open the relief valve to speed up the process, because you take a chance on exploding your bags. You have to realize the bags themselves will be at 15 psi. And if you suddenly release the pressure, then that pressure that is inside the bags has to go somewhere. So simply shut off the stove and walk away and let the bags cool slowly. And preferably overnight. Whenever they're cooled to room temperature, they'll be ready to inoculate, and that's the next segment.